There is a moment in your life that you never talk about, a moment that repeats itself over and over, wearing different faces but carrying the same sting. It's that instant, you know it well, when you realize someone has taken from you again. Your time, your energy, your kindness, your labor, your silence, your patience, your loyalty. And as always, there is a part of you that whispers, how did I end up here again? You replay everything in your head. You tell yourself you misread the situation, that you're overreacting, that maybe this time it wasn't manipulation. Maybe you simply gave too much, but deep down you know the truth. People use you when you don't understand the rule of self-value. And the cruel twist is this: the very thing that protected you in childhood is the exact thing that destroys you in adulthood. Because back then, when you were small, tender, and learning how the world works, you discovered a painful lesson. If you're pleasing, people stay. If you're helpful, people like you. If you're quiet, you avoid trouble. If you disappear, no one gets angry. You learn to survive by shrinking, smoothing, softening yourself until you fit the expectations of everyone else. And here's the paradox that keeps haunting you. The trait that once kept you safe is now the trait that keeps you exploited. You don't get used because you're weak. You get used because somewhere deep within your nervous system, you were trained to believe that your worth is proportional to your usefulness. You don't lack intelligence. What you lack is permission. Permission to take up space. Permission to say no without guilt. Permission to exist without earning your place. And so, without understanding this rule, the rule of self-value, you keep living in a world where love is a transaction, attention is conditional, and your heart becomes a resource everyone freely extracts from. But today we're going to break that pattern, not by fixing you, but by finally revealing the blueprint that shaped you. Definition and psychological authority. Deep dive. There is a very real psychological architecture behind why people use you, and it begins with emotional conditioning. Let's break it down using three critical concepts. Parentification. This is when a child is forced, directly or indirectly, to play the role of the emotional adult. If you had to calm your parents, absorb their stress, or constantly predict what mood they were in, just to avoid conflict, then you develop the belief, my value is in what I provide, not in who I am. Your brain, wired for survival, learned to scan for needs, anticipate problems, and preemptively fix things before they escalate. This makes you highly empathetic, but also highly vulnerable to exploitation. Hypervigilance. When the nervous system is regularly exposed to emotional instability, it becomes alert, always monitoring for subtle shifts, tone changes, danger cues. You became a master at reading people, not because you wanted to, but because you had to. This creates adults who notice discomfort instantly, adjust themselves to keep peace, feel responsible for everyone else's emotions. Hypervigilance doesn't make you intuitive, it makes you exhausted. Fawn response, trauma response. Most people know about fight, flight, freeze, but the fourth trauma response, fawn, is the one that shapes the used personality. Fawning is the nervous system's attempt to gain safety through compliance. It manifests as overgiving, over-explaining, over-apologizing, over-accommodating, over-performing, saying yes when you mean no. It is the behavioral echo of a childhood lesson. If I'm good enough, I won't be abandoned. This isn't personality, it's programming. Your neurotransmitters, dopamine, cortisol, even oxytocin, became conditioned to associate self-abandonment with safety. And so in adulthood, you navigate relationships through reflex, not intention. You don't get used because people are inherently cruel. You get used because your boundaries are written in invisible ink. The emotional cost and philosophical weight, the core of pain. The emotional cost of living this way is staggering, though you rarely admit it. It shows up as quiet grief, invisible exhaustion, a loneliness that follows you even in crowded rooms. Because every time you give when you're empty, every time you say yes while whispering no inside your chest, you perform a small act of self-betrayal, and these betrayals accumulate. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But for you, the terror began much earlier. The terror of being yourself at all. You learn that love must be earned, that belonging must be purchased, that your needs are inconvenient, that if you are not useful, you are replaceable. So you became the caretaker, the peacemaker, the therapist friend, the one who listens at 3 a.m., the one